Okay, this is the last video in this series. This is an ongoing process, and I will be expounding upon these things in future videos because I think that's where we're all at now. Everything we've covered that's behind us really has to do with the paying attention to and recognizing and accepting what these systems are that we were born into, how we got here. This is going to be more of rising above that, and then integrating everything, integrating your journey, integrating what you learn along your journey. Um, yeah, it's deep. It's deep. This is real where the real work. The other stuff is more entertaining and shock value kind of thing. It's to wake you up, right? It's to wake you up if you've been asleep to our situation currently as a humanity. Um, this will be to really spark these this healing within you. Okay, and all it's doing is it's unlocking things, right? So I'm going to do the best I can. This is really deep. I'm still like ongoing on my journey, so like having to sort of go back and put all this together in a coherent fashion into the 3D is extremely difficult, actually. While you're just catapulting through this healing and reclamation of who we truly are. And so it's like you're having to hold these different times and space, and then plus, like I've said, it's like every day it's a new man. Sometimes 4, 5, 6 times a day it's a brand new human standing here, brand new human in control and operation of this mechanism, a brand new human, realizing the full integration of body, mind, and spirit. And so I'm going to do the best I can, but like I said, whatever, I'm sure there's going to be tons to cover. um, Again, everybody's journey is so nuanced. Yeah, what a magical life, man. All right, so when I hit rock bottom, I had hit rock bottom actually several times in my life. Uh, had several opportunities where I could have turned my ship around, and I didn't. And I just kept, through my hard-headedness and through my allowance of my past to dictate how I steered my ship. Um, I didn't take those opportunities, and yeah, given so many opportunities, my goodness, um, it's like how much abuse you can take. And like I said, I drove this being into the ground. I drove him into the ground physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. Done. That's when I had my opportunity was given to me one more time. Do you want to just end it and just say, okay, this is enough, or try again next time, or whatever? Or would you like to figure this thing out and fulfill what I see as my purpose now? Um, so, I was in the deep, darkest depths of hell, like no hope, no nothing. I was like a scared little mouse running around in a circle, in the corner. No hope, no way out. Um, and my way out the way I did it was I had to first recognize and accept things for what they are, not what they appear. And that seems really, really simple, but that's really, really hard, because that one action right there requires one to give up their version of reality. And even though it would make sense, like, okay, well, why would you give up? You gaslit yourself. You allowed yourself to be gaslit. You gaslit yourself your whole life. You've blamed yourself. You've lived with, you're crushing yourself under the burden of shame and guilt. Why wouldn't you step out from that and take a different perspective? Well, when you got those layers, not only emotionally and psychologically layered in with, the extreme trauma and abuse from every system along the way, from the very top, the government, or the religion, whatever, religion, government, education system, our culture and social norm, and all the way down to the family unit. And there's nothing but abuse happening at every single level. It's very hard to face those things, because what I did from the age of, I found alcohol at 12 and realized that was the only thing that numbed it, because prior to that, I had begged Jesus, please save me from this unbelievable position I'm finding myself in that's hurting me very bad, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually while I was a child, and that went unanswered for 4 years, and so at 12, when I found alcohol, I realized, oh wow, here's Jesus in the bottom of the bottle, because alcohol did for me everything that Jesus didn't. And now I kept my faith, because of, again, the traumatic conditioning and brainwashing and manipulation and indoctrination that these systems place upon you through shame and guilt, and the fact of hell, and you're born into sin, and all of these things. So I gave it my best for another 4 years until I was 16. And then when I got to my aunt's house, my extremely wealthy aunt's house, and realized that the only people that I thought physical people on this earth, besides Jesus, that could possibly save me, were, at that time, I didn't understand what it was, but gaslighting and of shucking their own responsibilities, because they had no clue, they did. But I saw the pattern, so I ended up in the most perfect position I could imagine to be saved from myself, from the hell I had created inside by the time I was 16. And the help never came, and it was very blatant, very abrupt, and very quick. It was made itself known that, no, you're still not enough, you still haven't done enough, screw the past, we're moving forward, these are the new requirements, da 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 da. So it was from one abusive system to a next, right? And it was the letdown of, okay, well, this isn't working. And then it was the alcohol that just swept me away. I got lost in it. I got lost in Jesus at the bottom of the bottle, right? And anyways, held on to religion, held on to Jesus and the Bible as being infallible and all that bullshit that they shove into us, through shame and guilt, and make you afraid to question your own experiences and observations, which is exactly what this first step was for me. Recognize and accept things for what they are, not what they appear. So the very first thing I had to do in order to even be able to do that was to give up alcohol, because alcohol obviously was the proxy that I had set up to stand in for personal responsibility. And I took personal. I mean, I had a house. I mean, I did everything. I did the American bullshit dream and all of that. So I took responsibility, but in this, just on one part of who we actually are, mind, body, and spirit, right? Just in that physical, dense, you know, highly toxic masculine sphere, without accounting for anything else. And so I was way off kilter, way off balance, extremely toxic masculine. So for me personally, I had to get off the alcohol. I had to take that proxy out of the way and place personal responsibility at the forefront. And personal responsibility allowed me to recognize and accept things for what they are, not what they appear. So I had to, I had verbally, dropped hints throughout my life to different people to see, like, sort of throwing a line out there, with a worm on the end, to see if I could get anybody to bite, right? And I couldn't. So, I dropped hints. I knew, I kept myself mentally, intellectually caught up, so to say, with the truth of what was going on, as far as, everything was corrupt. The government, it was all patterns. It was all, the family system was the same as the religious system, was the same as the education system, was the same as the government system, and on and on and on. And you found it everywhere. Everywhere I went, the military, it didn't matter. Jobs, it did not matter. It was all the same. And that's why being drunk allowed me, because I was a functioning alcoholic, because it allowed me to numb that part of me that knew that it needed to go further and not participate, but it didn't know how, because it had never experienced that freedom, that it had never been allowed to think outside of the parameters of the mind control, the emotional control, and the psychological control that all got placed on me at a very young age, and I'm sure all of you. The next step after that was starting to take action, okay? So after recognizing and accepting things for what they are and not what they appear, so a lot of emotional stuff, a lot of like shock, a lot of like, oh my God, a lot of like, I knew it all along, a lot of that, right? The next step for me was aligning the physical, logical, emotional, spiritual. I'm missing one here. I wrote logical in here. Hold on. Physical, emotional, psychological. No, is that it? Yeah, physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual. Sorry, guys. I did this last night. I wrote all this up last night, these two boards, in like an hour. I've been waiting for this to come to me to be able to get this out. And so it took me an hour last night, just sort of flowed right out of me. Actually, the backboard took me about 10 minutes. And it just sort of flowed right out of me, and I haven't looked at it since. So my next step, the second step for me, was the physical, psychological, emotional, and spiritual alignment. I started realizing how out of balance and how out of kilter I was, because I opened myself emotionally, and it was a combination of me opening myself emotionally and me having been completely broken. This was me, completely broken, right? But my eyes opened, right? And so I realized that, wait a minute, there's some kind of misalignment. There's misalignment. There's something I'm missing. There's something, I'm not complete. I'm not whole What is it? Why is it? How is that possible? I thought that this 3D existence was all there was, and we could just fake Jesus and fake the body, fake church and fake religion, and we could just fake vote and fake things were okay, and fake this and fake that, and just keep on going till we were in the ground, right? And so I started realizing that there were other aspects to me. I knew there was spiritual, but it was always the spiritual was, oh, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. That was my thing. And I couldn't go very deep on that. Oh yeah, I'm emotional. If I see somebody hurting, I'm going to help them. If I, see an old lady crossing the street, I'm going to help her. If I see somebody without money, then water's dripping on their head in their house, I'm going to fix it for free. So I was there in these ways. It's just, it was so shallow and all within these systems, right? None of it was any kind, it was all within the parameters. And this is what it's all coming down to. It was all within the parameters of the mind, the slave mind control box that we're placed under. So how did I start aligning these things? How did I start healing? Because with this alignment comes healing. Healing means to become whole, right? I was broken. I was shattered into a million different pieces. I had thousands of different altars. I had all of these mass. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was overwhelming. Nobody could deal with me. Nobody could be around me. I couldn't be around. I knew better than to allow myself, whatever this was, this conglomeration of shit that I was carrying, of parasites, demons, entities, emotions, past traumas, abuses, all this stuff that I was carrying with me. I knew, I didn't even know what it was at that time. I just knew it was so heavy, so bad, so chaotic, I couldn't even carry it out into public. So how did I start alignment? How did I start healing? How did I start becoming whole? For me, child work was huge. These aren't in any kind of order, by the way, and I probably don't have, I probably have half of the things, but I think I have most of the important things, and I'm sure I'll remember things as we go. So please, I appreciate your patience. Child work was enormous for me, obviously. I've gone over my childhood, and with that much trauma and abuse, you can imagine that child work was, because it was completely avoided. Up until this point in time, 5 years ago, when I started this journey, up until then, when I looked at my childhood, it was basically just, it was fucked. Yeah, it was bad. Yeah, it sucked. But you know what? That was my childhood, and this is me now. And I cannot blame the past on who I am now. I'm a grown up. I'm an adult. That was me as a kid. That is the mindset that is gaslit and programmed and conditioned into us to keep us enslaved, right? And it is powerful. It is extremely powerful. So child work was very important. I had to quit drinking. Again, those two went hand in hand, really, for me. I think I spent quite a bit of time in those two at the beginning, until I started making breakthroughs, right? I mean, I was getting feelings I had never felt before. It was unbelievable. I mean, the emotions that were coming out of me, everything. It was just nonstop, just day in and day out. And then the confusion, because I could see, because of my high perception that I just naturally have, I could see that this was leading into a whole lot more than I could ever imagine. And I had no idea at that time. But the childhood work and the quit drinking sort of pushed me. And before that, I had even started fasting. So see, I was on my journey. It's just alcohol was really key. Alcohol was my chains. Alcohol was my straitjacket. Alcohol was for me, I had voluntarily at 16 placed myself subservient and at the whim of alcohol in order to survive in these systems. I started paying. So yeah, I started fasting, like 2 years before this, 3 years before this. I was coming out of my fast. I was doing 48-hour fasts and coming out drinking, getting drunk, smoking cigarettes the whole time, smoking weed the whole time while I'm fasting. And but for me, and I just want to throw this in there for whoever it resonates with. For me, when I did my first, I think it was 48-hour fast, I had, I was still recovering from major brain injury, brain trauma, and everything else. When I first did my 48-hour fast, and I was still smoking a pack a day of cigarettes, Marlboro menthols, I was smoking weed from morning, noon, night. Um, I did my first 48-hour fast like 8 years ago. And I mean, I was still working. Oh my gosh. I just can't believe that this is survived all that. It's unbelievable. Um, it's a miracle. It's amazing. It's a testament to the power of who we truly are. Um, and the things we're capable of if we dedicate ourselves to remembrance, to uh, reclaiming that birthright, to healing, to being our own authority and trusting in ourselves. Um, so I did my first 48-hour fast like 8 years ago, smoking the whole time. Got off that, and at that fast, I can't remember if it was at the 40-hour mark, whatever it was, man. I can't even remember. But I had never felt anything. It was a miracle. I was like, oh my God, what the millions of little like electrical. My brain was healing. I was literally healing right then and there and could feel it, could feel my brain healing. And I came off that fast and obviously got drunk. And I told my son, I told everybody, I was like, oh my God, fasting is the most amazing thing, man. I healed my brain injury with fasting, right? And little did I know that was the very beginning of this long and very nuanced journey that I find myself on. So I started paying attention to what I allowed in, on, around, and on my body, right? What I put in my mouth, what I put in my ears, what I put in my skin. And this wasn't all of a sudden, I didn't just stop everything, right? I was still watching movies. I don't know if I had a TV back then. I don't think I did. I think I was watching them on my phone. Um, but I was still watching movies on my phone, still watching like Joe Rogan and fucking, the what do they call that? Auditors, that audit the police and stuff like, still finding the only way to entertain my time was within the paradoxes of this system, right? So that when I mention these things, like I said, I used to fast and get drunk after my fasting. I used to smoke a pack of cigarettes and smoke weed the whole time on my fasting. Whereas now, I couldn't imagine doing any of that. So I'm sitting here now. I smoke marijuana in my ceremonies occasionally now. But other than that, and it's for very important spiritual use and with great intention and reverence and understanding of what I'm doing. But yeah, so like these things are just things that I implemented that grew and grew and grew and became more and more part of me. And at first I only saw it to be this, and then I saw it to be this, and it was like, oh wow. And so you grow this as you go along, and you're healing everything, interchangeably as they come along, or integrating everything as it goes. You're just realizing things on a deeper level. It's amazing how things were always there, and you're begging for more, and you're wondering why you don't get it. And little do you realize until you start down this path that the reason I didn't get it was because I wouldn't allow myself to receive what was already there. and I was unable to receive because this vessel that I occupy was physically unable. That's another video, but anyways, I'll go into that because that's very important too. And that goes right into my next one here, yoga. Yoga, aligning that spine, because see, I had not only brain injury, but I had spinal cord, at least 3 different places in my spinal cord, from my butt to my top of my head, to the base of my skull, where I had dislocation or whatever else going on. So yoga was a huge part of me because, see, your communication system runs through the spinal cord. So if that's pinched all the way throughout, inflamed and everything else, these messages that are being sent, spiritually and everything, and emotionally and everything else, is getting constantly kinked up. And, that explains, many physical health problems that we get. Cut everyone out. So I cut everyone out, because when in order to do that, again, I had to go back to the first step, recognize and accept things for what they are and not what they appear. I knew I was being talked about my whole life behind my back. I knew I was, being denied my story. I knew that my family had completely looked at me written me off as a lunatic, and were completely on board and in line with my mom's false narrative of who I am, who I was, and my journey when I was living with her. And I understand now why she did that. It was for her own survival and what she had to do, because I ran away. I got out of the picture. So, throw everything on him, the scapegoat, throw everything on him. And she was probably like, let's see if I can do it right this time, and she gave it a fair shot, but she did it all within, again, the slave mind control parameters. She never worked on herself emotionally. She never worked on herself psychologically, mentally. She never worked on herself spiritually. Her spiritual work was all within the God framework, the Jesus framework, the Southern Baptist framework, right? The legalized Christianity framework. Oh my God, you can't get much worse than that fucking thing. So I had to cut everybody out. And I had actually cut my mom out a few years prior, because even being drunk, I realized, it was every single time. So I had cut her off a few years prior. But when this came along, I realized everybody else that needed to get axed out of my life. Again, now this, I don't think this is going to last forever. I think there will be a reconciliation, I think. Maybe not in this physical existence. I have a strong feeling there will be, though, just because of the time and age we're living through right now. But maybe not in this physical existence, but definitely on the spiritual, ethereal, astral realms, where we're all connected. Cut everyone out. I became more aware of everywhere my attention was going. God, man, every single one of these is so vitally important. I became more aware of where my attention was going. So this helped me realize, as I went along, 2 years later, I was realizing, oh, wait a minute, the 12 hours during the day that you're not doing anything, you don't need to sit there and watch auditor videos and Joe Rogan and, whatever other stupid shit I used to watch. I can't even remember anymore. But becoming aware of where my attention going. And the reason that was so important was because I was realizing that wherever my attention went, it was because of my sensitivities, it was very apparent to me and very known. There was no denying it. When I would think about something, I watched something on Joe Rogan, and he had this certain guest, and they were talking about this. I could feel I was so in tune. I could feel my emotion. I could feel after I walked away. I could feel how it affected me. And so I started realizing, I was like, wait a minute, this attention thing's really fucking important, man. And then when I would do my yoga, if I would put my mind and keep everything in the here and now with my yoga sessions were phenomenal. But if I was thinking about this, I need to do this, I need to hurry up and do that. Oh God, when this, the whole time I'm doing my yoga, the 20, 30 minutes I'm doing my yoga, then that session, I might as well not have even done it. And see, this goes back to when I used to bodybuild when I was in my teenage years and in early 20s. And I think it was in my early 20s was when I had realized that mind muscle connection. I think it was Arnold Schwarzenegger's book that I had read that had first spoken of that and opened me up to that mind muscle connection. And I used to do that in my workouts and I couldn't believe it. I was like, holy fuck. And I used to tell people about that back when I was like 22 years old, and about that because I was built, I was stacked and I had musculature in certain ways. People were like, how'd you get that little muscle group so big? And I'd be like, dude, you can connect your mind to your muscles, man. Yeah, so anyways, so I became more and more sensitive and aware and honest about where my attention goes is where my energy was flowing. And I started taking my attention back from everywhere that was draining me. Breathing techniques. Lots of breathing techniques, again, scattered throughout everything. But I will say this, for the past year to year and a half, maybe longer now. Gosh, how long has it been? Year to year and a half now. In my ceremonies and meditations, I do extremely deep breathing exercises. And it's just a natural part of how it's not a forced thing. It's because my meditations are very, very calm. Are very flowing. So it's not like I can sit there and try to concentrate on my breathing. That's sort of just something that comes. So deep breathing techniques, meditation, contemplation, and throughout the day, instead of turning on auditor videos and Rogan and all that smut shit, I would start meditating. Even if it was just for a few minutes, I'd start thinking about things like deeply, even deeper, and not these things, not just the physical, not just these structures, not just this matrix that we find ourselves in, but I would start meditating on things more ethereal, more spiritual, more emotional, how they were all connected. Excuse me. Slowing down was a huge one for me. I had anxiety my whole life. Never had a clue what anxiety was. Anytime the words anxiety or ADHD or autism or anything along these lines ever got mentioned was in like drunk conversations for me. And so it was all in those people that I hung out with. This stuff was like loony bin. It was like fucking quacks, fucking weirdos, fucking flakes, fucking fags, fucking, I mean, you name it, right? It was just like it would, these words were literally only entertained to spit the most vile shit about and then move on to the next, target. So I had no clue what anxiety was. And I had been living with anxiety my whole life because that's also what the alcohol helped with that I didn't realize was the anxiety until it didn't. So it's like a fish being in water and, it's like a fish not knowing that what it's living in is water. That's what me and my anxiety were. My anxiety had become just such a part of who I was and how I operate, how I got out of bed in the morning, how I walked, how I moved through the day, how I talked to people, how I did dishes, how I cleaned my house, how I walked outside, how I worked, everything. My anxiety was my personality, and I didn't know, and that's what contributed to my extrovertism, which got forced upon me as a young child with all the responsibilities and the requirements to fulfill the positions that I was placed under by my parents, by school, by everything else, right? Slowing down. Slow down, Richard. Practicing staying present. So, yeah, I mean, you can see how these things are just sort of building on each other. Practicing staying present. I mean, I couldn't stay present. I couldn't sit. Like, even when I started being aware of where my attention was going, and I would sit for a couple minutes thinking on one thing, my mind would still be a whirlwind. You know, my emotions would still be a whirlwind. I would still let these things carry me with them. So I didn't even still at that time even know what practicing staying present was. I'm like, what do you mean staying present? It's fuck, I gotta pay this bill. In order to pay this bill, I gotta do this, and then I gotta get my kid, and then I got my ex-wife's bitching, and this ex-wife's doing this, and that, you know. So it was like there was never any present, because the present was so full of pain and chaos and confusion that if I didn't wrap myself in doing, then I was just falling even further and further behind in which created and made my present hell even hotter and even more unbearable. Hape ceremonies, again, Hape was huge for me, and still is right now. You know, it's a big thing on my journey, for so many different reasons I won't go into right now. That's a whole different video. Affirmations, my self-talk was horrible. You know, you hear these people talk about how affirmations are bullshit, and how affirmations are, yeah, you want the slow way to get there, you want the never way to get there, you want to just take forever, you want to just, no. Affirmations for me were extremely important for me, because my self-talk was picked up from the time I was a child, and that was, you are unworthy, you were born evil, you're a liar, you're lazy, you're chaotic, you are confusing, you don't do anything to help out, you care more about yourself, you are selfish, you are shame, guilt. And that was my, then you wonder why my anxiety was so bad, right? So for me, affirmations were extremely important. And this was another one that I had actually started years prior and had turned people onto, were subliminal affirmations, that you would listen to at night, right? That would play subliminals. And I was amazed. That was another one. I was like, oh, check this out, guys, you know, but I never stuck with that. You know, because I had so many, because this journey requires you to heal on the 4 fundamental levels, right? And if you aren't, then you're just going to keep falling back into the old man, falling back into the old patterns, falling back into the old behaviors. To really integrate change, you have to be changing on many different levels. You're not going to be able to do it just with affirmations. You know, I mean, you can't do that. You're not going to be able to do it with just yoga. You're going to be able to do it just changing your diet. It takes the whole thing. So, where are we? Affirmations, it's extremely important for me. Juicing, extremely, I mean, you can imagine the shit that I went in my mouth my whole life. You know, extreme volumes of alcohol every day, and then whatever else would fit in my system on top of the alcohol. So Taco Bell, McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, 7-Eleven food. Oh my God. 7-Eleven food. Oh, my stomach just tightened up when I said that. Oh, I can't believe these physical systems can make it through all this shit. Oh, man. So juicing was very important for me. God knows how many pounds of shit I had stuffed and caked up and concreted against the walls of my body. So juicing was extremely important for me. Fasting, again, eating raw or just fruit. So you can see, I just sort of, I mean, they progress, you know, like you can say juicing, but like if you said juicing to me 3 years ago, the what I saw was completely different than what I see now when I say juicing. And it's amazing. Again, it comes back to you are given everything you need. It's right in front of you. It's right here. It's just we are unable to recognize it because of the blocks, because of the mental, emotional, spiritual, and psychological blocks that we have, that until we get our shit together, until we take that respect, until we dedicate ourselves to this path, you're just not going to be able to understand the true gravity of the gift that we've been given. And then the last one I have on here is recognizing the trap of conspiracies and rabbit holes. That was important because, again, I don't know if I've told you guys multiple times how my stepdad had introduced me personally to the Communist Manifesto and what is that, the Secret Hand or whatever, all that stuff when I was a kid, like young, like 8, 9, 10 years old. And I was an avid reader, read hundreds of books a year. And, I read these books. So, and then being as sensitive as I was and seeing everything that I saw, my mind was able to hold the fact of these conspiracies and the evilness in which we were entrapped in. And so for me, giving up conspiracies and rabbit holes slowly over time, because I'm still pulling myself away. I still feel that energetic attachment to them at times, very seldom now and very few and far between. But and I don't dive deep in anything, but recognizing the trap of those conspiracy and rabbit holes was almost as hard of if not just as hard, if not harder, a pattern of abusive systems that I was operating under to recognize and accept and heal from, as was the alcohol, the undenied abuse and trauma as a child, the unfaced stuff, the refusal to think that what I would put in my mouth mattered, because I used to say I had an iron stomach, But anyway, so yeah, recognizing the trap of conspiracies and rabbit holes was very important for me, because even up until last year, I was still diving in. What really got me was like about a year ago when they started opening up the floodgates on all this stuff. I was like, oh, I see what they're doing, because of my ability to recognize these patterns, right? I recognized immediately. I was like, motherfuckers, man, they are literally pouring out everything to just keep people spinning in circles. And I was like, Richard, you need to go back up here and start practicing staying present. You need to go back up here and become more aware of everywhere my attention was going. Richard, you need to go back up here and go more into meditation contemplation. Richard, you need to go back up here and going back into slowing down. Richard, you need to go back up here and pay more attention in your happy ceremonies. Richard, you need to go back up here and start paying attention more to what you're allowing in your body. Richard, you need to go up here and make sure that your yoga and you're not getting any blockages physically. So you can see how it just nothing came to mind. I know there's way more that I delved into, but these are ones that have have become a part of me. And I don't know how I could have done it without them, because they all were vital in me unlocking things, right? Again, not becoming married to these things. I don't sit in my child work. I don't sit in my past. Like, I could not become a counselor and sit there with people who are just want to over and over for the next ever sit there and talk about their childhood or their past experiences. This is stuff that, for me, I needed to vocalize, get it out, make it known into the physical what my truth was, and then work on healing from that and distancing myself, not in a way of denying or downgrading what happened, but not being emotionally attached to the point, emotionally and psychologically attached to the point that when these things come up, they affect me, or that I'm not learning the lessons because so from this new perspective I'm in, that was a gift for me, my extreme trauma. And I just know that sounds crazy to most people, but in order for me to keep moving forward the way I am on my journey and progressing on my journey and reclaiming what's mine, I have to allow myself that change in perspective. And with that change in perspective, I see my childhood and what I went through as a gift now, because without those things, I'd just be another mule, another cow following the other cow into the other pen. And I'd probably be dead. But yeah, none of this would have been possible. Should I go into this next one? It may be because it sets it up. Okay, I'm going to go into this next one where I'm at now, which is embracing paradoxes. And also, this goes in further integration and remembrance of who I am on many different levels and what that entails, and integrating that all into the physical. Because again, we can know these things, we can practice these things. I can sit in meditation and play in the astral and the ethereal with these things, but that's not why I'm here. That's not why I hung on to this life. That's not why I kept going. That's not why I didn't give up. That's not why I refused to give up this body. The reason I did that was for full reclamation, full knowledge, and therefore personal responsibility and reclamation of what is mine and embodiment of it. That's what I'm doing. That is what I'm doing. So embracing paradoxes is where I'm at right now. I will say this, becoming the person you trust over all others as supreme authority and taking complete responsibility and dedication to your own physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health and alignment is absolutely necessary. And the only way I see to do that is through this. For me, these were my steps. Again, becoming the person you trust the most over all others. That means you've reclaimed whatever authority you've handed over to any other entity, any other person, any other system, whatever else. You are reclaiming and becoming that person that you trust over all that shit, right? As supreme authority. And now that you've done that, recognizing and taking complete responsibility and dedication to your own physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health and alignment. Okay. And I'll just give you an idea of where I'm at now with the embracing paradoxes. So embracing paradoxes requires grace, okay? You must have built that trust within yourself and be willing to burn it all and stand in the dark. Otherwise, you will be susceptible to, and more than likely to, get obfuscated or otherwise misdirected in the space and time it takes to process these paradoxes. And by burning all that came before and standing in that pitch black of the to be remembered, you have now established your willingness to, at any given moment, relinquish the imaginary lifeline of belief. And I'm not going to go into that. It's going to be a different video. I just want to give you guys a snippet of where I'm at. I've catapulted forward in the past since I started doing these videos again. Absolutely amazing, phenomenal. This is a magical gift called life, and man, my intention with these videos is to shine a light onto that path for others to see in their own journeys, that they may also experience this amazing, magical gift of life. So once you give yourself that grace, you must have that patience with the stranger you are remembering, which is extremely deep on many different levels, and a willingness to forego all preconceived notions and abandon all beliefs with a deep and humble knowing this is the truth. I'll repeat that one. A willingness to forego all preconceived notions and abandon all beliefs with a deep and humble knowing this is the truth. Thank you all for being here. I look forward to whatever is next. Take care of yourselves, guys. Nobody else will.